She sat alone at the edge of the wedding reception table, surrounded by crystal glasses and soft golden light, yet feeling invisible, as if joy itself had carefully stepped around her. The laughter in the room rose and fell like distant waves, and every clink of silverware reminded her that she was present, but not chosen, invited but not remembered. No one noticed how she folded her hands in her lap to keep them from trembling, or how her eyes searched for a place to rest without landing on something that hurt. She had come believing this night would mean something different, unaware that somewhere in the same room, fate was quietly rearranging everything she thought she knew. Before the story unfolds further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that change lives when no one is watching, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because your presence here matters more than you know. Her name was Clara Whitmore, and she had learned early in life how to sit quietly with disappointment. Growing up in a small town that forgot dreams as quickly as it created them, Clara became the kind of woman who showed up for others even when no one showed up for her. She worked long hours as a freelance event assistant, stitching together income from weddings, conferences, and charity galas, always in the background, always helpful, never center stage. This wedding was no different. She was not a bridesmaid or a close friend, but a last-minute guest added out of politeness because she had once helped the bride during a difficult season. Clara wore a simple champagne-colored dress she had saved up for, hoping to blend in, hoping not to be seen, and somehow hoping to be seen at the same time. The reception hall was breathtaking, all soft candlelight and towering floral arrangements that seemed to whisper promises of forever. Couples leaned into each other, hands intertwined, faces glowing with belonging. Clara sat at a table near the back, where conversations drifted past her like smoke, never quite settling. She smiled when people glanced her way, but no one stayed long enough to ask her story. She watched plates being filled and emptied, glasses raised in toasts that celebrated love she could admire but not touch. The ache in her chest was familiar, the kind that comes from being surrounded by happiness while carrying a quiet grief no one thinks to ask about. Across the room was a man named Nathaniel Brooks, though most people simply called him Nate. He was one of the groomsmen, impeccably dressed, confident without being loud, the kind of presence that drew attention without demanding it. What the room buzzed about in hushed admiration was his success. Nathaniel had built a technology company from nothing, selling it before 40 and becoming a self-made millionaire whose name carried weight in business circles. Yet beneath the tailored suit and calm smile was a man who felt deeply out of place in rooms full of celebration. Wealth had brought him comfort, but not peace, and he had learned that admiration rarely came with understanding. Nathaniel noticed Clara not because she stood out, but because she did not. In a room full of people leaning into each other, she sat straight and still, her posture careful, her eyes reflecting something heavier than the music suggested. There was a quiet dignity in the way she carried herself, a softness that did not ask for attention but somehow deserved it. He found his gaze returning to her table again and again, feeling an unexpected pull he could not explain. It was not attraction in the usual sense, but recognition, as if he were seeing a familiar loneliness mirrored across the room. Clara, meanwhile, was fighting the urge to leave early. She told herself she had stayed long enough to be polite, long enough to prove she belonged, even if only on the edges. She thought about the long bus ride home, the small apartment she shared with silence, and the emails waiting unanswered because rejection had become routine. Her life felt like a series of almosts, almost enough, almost chosen, almost loved. She wondered if this was simply how things were meant to be, if some people were born to stand in the light while others learned to survive in the shadows. As the evening unfolded, something subtle shifted. Nathaniel found himself lingering near her table, pretending to admire the decor, listening to the rhythm of her breathing when she thought no one noticed. He saw how she helped an elderly guest retrieve a fallen napkin, how she offered her seat without hesitation, how her kindness flowed outward even when she had so little returned to her. It reminded him of a version of himself he had been forced to bury while chasing success, the man who once believed goodness alone could change the world. Their connection did not ignite in a dramatic moment. There was no sudden confession or sweeping gesture. Instead, it grew in the quiet spaces between songs, in the shared understanding of being surrounded by people yet feeling profoundly alone. Nathaniel began to see the world differently through the lens of her presence. He noticed the way the light softened her features when she smiled at strangers, the resilience etched into her calm expression. He realized that everything he had accumulated meant very little if he could not share it with someone who understood the value of small mercies. Clara sensed the shift too, though she did not fully trust it. Life had taught her to be cautious with hope, to treat it like a fragile thing that could shatter without warning. She felt his attention like a warm current, steady and respectful, not demanding anything from her. For the first time that evening, she allowed herself to relax, to breathe without bracing for disappointment. The room no longer felt quite so vast, the distance between her and the rest of the world narrowing just enough to feel possible. As days turned into weeks after the wedding, their lives began to intersect in ways neither had planned. Nathaniel reached out through mutual connections, offering support for Clara's work, not as charity but as belief. He saw her talent, her reliability, her ability to create beauty under pressure. Clara, in turn, saw past his wealth to the man who questioned his own worth beyond numbers and accolades. She discovered his quiet generosity, the way he funded scholarships anonymously, the way he listened more than he spoke when someone needed to be heard. Their bond deepened through shared silences and unspoken understanding. Both carried scars from past disappointments, relationships that had taught them caution rather than trust. Clara struggled with feeling undeserving of happiness, while Nathaniel wrestled with the fear that people loved what he represented more than who he was. Together, they learned to be patient, to let affection grow without rushing, to honor the pace that healing required. Challenges emerged, as they always do when two worlds collide. Clara faced judgment from those who assumed she was drawn to wealth, while Nathaniel confronted skepticism from peers who doubted her sincerity. There were moments when misunderstanding threatened to pull them apart, when old insecurities whispered that this connection was too good to last. But each time, they chose honesty over retreat, courage over comfort. They learned that love is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. The transformation in Clara was subtle but profound. She began to stand taller, her voice steadier, her dreams no longer tucked away as impractical fantasies. Nathaniel found himself rediscovering joy in simplicity, learning that fulfillment did not come from grand achievements alone, but from shared mornings, quiet laughter, and the sense of being truly seen. Together, they created a life that balanced ambition with compassion, success with humility. Near the end of this journey, when the weight of everything they had endured finally settled into something peaceful, Nathaniel understood that the night of the wedding had been more than a coincidence. It had been a crossroads, a moment when two people standing on the edges of their own lives found the courage to step toward each other. Clara realized that being unseen for so long had not diminished her worth, but prepared her to recognize real love when it arrived without spectacle. If this story has touched your heart, if it has reminded you that even the quietest moments can change everything, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can reach those who need them most. And before this story ends, please comment below and tell us what part of Clara's journey resonated with you the most, because your words might be the hope someone else is searching for tonight. In the end, Clara no longer sat alone, not because someone had rescued her, but because she had learned her own value and allowed love to meet her there. And Nathaniel, the millionaire groomsman who once measured life in success, discovered that the greatest wealth he would ever know was found in the quiet strength of a woman who had waited patiently at the edge of the room, unaware that love was already on its way.